After all this time, Grayskull is ours.
Ow! Alright, let me know when I'm good to go.
No, you are never good to go. Such an asshole. Yeah,
Hello, and welcome back to more Films Under Constant Critique, where we take a look at films, some good, some bad, and some downright awful. I'm Bongo Baikov, joined by our host, Maverick Drenzaria. This week, we are taking a look at the 1987 film, the one that we've all been waiting for on this podcast, Masters of the Universe.
by the power of Grayskull. Yeah, so this is a one that's been a long time coming. We've been referencing this one since what? The Superman 3 podcast?
Yeah.
Jeez. Because again, it was like, oh, what's our podcast? Are we doing Masters of the Universe? And this is the one time you can't actually make that joke. And this is apparently another movie that made you sick.
Yeah, well, okay, I got sick. I don't think it was this one that actually made me sick. I don't know what made me sick. I just woke up and felt like I was dying for like 3 days.
And you also cut your hand with the,
Yeah, it was a very aggressive can of tomatoes. Split my finger open.
Were you, like, cutting it with He-Man's sword or something?
Yes.
Okay, so Masters of the Universe. I forgot to look up the release date. I'm sorry. Was released on August 7th, 1987. It cost $22 million and only made $17 million.
That's a bit of a yikes.
It made less money than Superman 4, unbelievably.
Oh, that's a lot of a yikes.
This is our third canon movie. Because we did Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, and The Punisher, which also had Dolph Lundgren. And this came out the same year as Superman 4.
This is a bad year for canon.
Yeah, it's because of this movie and some others being box office bombs that are why canon went bankrupt in the early 90s. And to think, canon wanted this to be the Star Wars of the 80s.
Yeah.
Even though you already had 2 Star Wars movies in the 80s. So the cast, we of course have Samuel L. Jackson.
Surprise, we found a way to sneak him in again. You can see him obscured behind a bush.
I mean, I think he's in this, because, I mean, the motherfucker's in everything else, so why wouldn't he be in this? I mean, okay. Dolph Lundgren is the main star. He plays He-Man. And this was his first starring role.
Really?
Because before this, he was in A View to a Kill, where he had, like, a really minor role as a henchman. And he played Ivan Drago in Rocky IV, of course.
Of course!
He played the Punisher in the 1989 Punisher. He's in the Expendables movies. He's in Kindergarten Cop 2. Which I've never seen, but I bet that is so bad. Frank Langella, which we've had him on the podcast before.
Trying to remember where.
I don't know if you remember this. He played Perry White in Superman Returns.
Oh! Huh.
Yeah, and some of his other roles, he played Dracula in the 1979 Dracula movie, Nixon in Frost Nixon.
Huh.
So that's 2 blood-sucking monsters that he played. Captain Fantastic. And I was just watching a Zorro movie he was in recently, by coincidence.
What you're forgetting his most important. You're forgetting his most important role.
Oh God, what?
He was a beef eater Vicar in the Muppets Most Wanted.
Oh God, I've never seen it, so I wouldn't have known that. Courteney Cox. Which, does that make this a Friends prequel in that case?
It might.
And she's also in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, the Scream movies. She appeared in a Bruce Springsteen music video. She was in the music video for Dancing in the Dark.
Huh.
And apparently that video was directed by Brian De Palma, which I forgot about that. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I mean, John Landis did the Thriller music video. Martin Scorsese did the Bad music video, which...
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
That was when they were getting, like, some big-name directors for music videos, I guess. James Tolkien, which... he was in Back to the Future as Strickland.
Oh.
Yeah, he keeps chastising Marty for being a slacker. He's in War Games, and he's in Top Gun. And he's in this. He basically plays the same character in everything. I mean...
yeah, that's a fair point.
Just the angry bald guy. Meg Foster, who was in Leviathan, and They Live. But yeah, so this is quite the cast, basically. This movie was directed by Gary Goddard, who unfortunately is... how do I put this? He's good friends with Bryan Singer. This is his only feature film credit.
It looks like most of his other stuff are a bunch of, like, amusement park rides.
Yeah, like the Jurassic Park ride, T2 3D Battle Across Time, which the video from that is honestly better than most of the Terminator sequels. Which is sad. Something which blew my mind is that this has the same editor as Lawrence of Arabia.
Really?
And the Elephant Man. And the Coates edited this, and that's so bizarre.
What a stark contrast. Apparently she was also the editor on 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh God. So, initial thoughts. I'll let you start with this one.
So, I had first watched this movie. It would have been... oh, what's this year? It would have been about... yeah, probably about 7 years ago.
7 years
my
ago.
freshman year in college.
Oh, boy.
I went in knowing that it didn't really resemble the actual, like, you know, cartoon all that much. I watched it, and I proceeded to forget about basically everything that happened in the movie, except for Skeletor. All I remember is Skeletor, although he was incredibly different from the cartoon Skeletor, I still really liked the character in the movie. And so when I went to rewatch it, I didn't exactly quite know what to expect. even though I had seen it before. Upon the rewatch, the movie has some good ideas and some good moments throughout, mostly at the very beginning and at the very end. But it gets so incredibly bogged down in its main plot, which is just uninteresting, not executed well, and just it's really just sort of a disappointment because there is potential to a movie like this, and you do see these moments, but just the bulk of it just isn't good.
Yeah. So yeah, and this movie obviously has been a running joke for a while because for somehow we kept finding like, well, okay, it started off
connections back to it.
It started off as like an accident where like we just found some accidental connections to Masters of the Universe, some of the movies we were doing, and then I just started finding ones deliberately just because fuck it. You know, the 6 degrees of Masters of the Universe. Which this movie, I don't know if you'll be surprised by this, this movie is a perfect match with Masters of the Universe.
Oh, yeah. We're at 0 degrees of separation.
Exactly. I'll admit, so I had also seen this movie before, but the first time I saw it, my familiarity with He-Man was pretty limited. I'd seen like clips of Skeletor, basically, was my exposure to it. Although funny enough, I actually did have He-Man toys as a kid. I had like, I still have them. I have like Skeletor and Battle Cat action figures.
I'm sure somewhere I have the He-Man figure in my parents' house.
And I always thought the toys were cool, but I just for some reason never saw the show. Which is weird. It looks like a show I would have loved as a kid.
Yeah.
So like recently I decided to just watch like some episodes of the show just so I'd know like a little more about the source material, and yeah, it's about what I expect from an 80s cartoon. You know, it's pretty corny, but it is enjoyable. You know, mostly because of Skeletor. That probably doesn't surprise anybody. But I was always surprised, like, at how silly Skeletor was in the cartoon, because, like...
Oh, yeah.
He's this big buff guy with, like, a skull for a face and a cool name, but he has this... weird high-pitched...
He speaks like this, and he calls everyone a boob.
He just has this weird high-pitched voice, and most of the time he's just insulting his henchmen, like, you blundering fool! Yeah, like, so I was curious rewatching this, like, with now having some knowledge of the cartoon. So now I can understand why kids in the 80s hated this thing so much. You know, now I've obviously watched a lot of canon movies, and I'd seen it before, and yeah, it's not very good.
Yeah.
I was a little worried to watch it again because the last time I watched this, I was really sick, actually. Like, I was literally, like, watching the movie, and I was also just puking on the floor that day.
That's not a good experience.
That's not an experience I wanted to replicate. Yeah, so the movie itself, I basically agree with you. Like, there's some cool ideas, but, oh my god, like, why? Why would you have it... The stuff on Eternia is pretty cool, but then the stuff on Earth is just so boring.
Exactly.
It's basically like watching the first Thor movie. That's what this movie... That's why I never was a huge fan of that first Thor movie, is because it's like, you have all this cool stuff on, like, Asgard, but then you decide, oh, let's just have him go to Earth and hang out with Natalie Portman. I mean, what? Like...
Yeah.
I was also just disappointed how few of the characters appear in the movie.
Because He-Man has a lot of very unique characters in it, and we barely see any of them here.
Because, I mean, yeah, you do have He-Man and Skeletor and Evil Lyn, but there's no Battle Cat, there's no She-Ra.
There's no Stinkor.
There's no Snake Men. I was fine with Orko not being there, because I honestly find Orko kind of annoying, but, you know. But some people were disappointed. But they basically just replace Orko with another character.
Yeah. Who's also not very good.
Yeah, named Gwildor, played by Billy Barty. Oh, I forgot to mention. Sorry. I forgot to mention that when we were talking about the cast. This is our second time having Billy Barty on the podcast. Because he was,
what else?
Because he was in Willow. He played the High Aldwin in Willow.
Oh.
He was okay in Willow. He wasn't that great in this.
No.
There were maybe a few parts I chuckled at him, but most of it I was just like, okay, what is he doing here? Oh, right, he's like Orko 2.0, I guess. Really, how hard was it to do Orko in this movie? I mean, anyway. Like, just have, like, a Jawa or something, like, following him around, you know. But yeah, like, looking at this, I can see a lot of potential. Like, I can tell that Canon spent more money on this than they usually do, but there were just so many ill-advised choices.
Yeah.
That just kept it from being, like, a classic. However, it does have two performances that I think are pretty good, and you could probably figure out who those two are.
You are obviously talking about Gwildor. I mean,
yeah,
stellar character right there, and then Beast Man.
Yes, obviously. Who else? It's not like it's not like this is one of Frank Langella's favorite performances that he ever did. I mean, but yeah. So overall, it's a pretty mediocre He-Man adaptation, I gotta say. Like, when it is trying to be like the cartoons, though, there actually is some interesting stuff. Like, He-Man honestly looks exactly like what I would expect a live-action He-Man.
100%. Dolph was, like, built just to look like He-Man, it feels like.
But, like, when it doesn't, it's like, okay, what? But we'll get into that later. So, the main plot of this one is that Eternia is at war with Skeletor. And then Gwildor, who is not Orko, we should point out, opens a portal to another dimension, and He-Man and his friends go through it and end up on Earth. And Skeletor sends some minions to track them. And then He-Man ends up befriending an Earth girl who works at not KFC. Basically, it's the first Thor movie if you replace Natalie Portman with Courteney Cox and Asgard with Eternia. I mean, like...
Basically.
No, that's basically what this movie... And, like, way less budget than that movie. Okay, so, but we'll start off positive with the pros.
So I think there's one big thing that we need to talk about that's in their positives. Skeletor.
Yes. Now, again, like we mentioned, Skeletor in the cartoons is basically just, like...
He's a very Saturday morning cartoon kind of villain.
Yeah, he's, like, really goofy and, like... has a lot of, like, insults. Like, he just... I guess that's what he does all day. He just sits on his throne and try to come up with what insult to use on his minions next. Like, but for some reason in this movie, Frank Langella is treating this like Shakespeare.
He plays it so serious and so straight. It is just remarkable.
It kind of reminds me of Raul Julia in the Street Fighter movie.
Yeah.
Where he took the role just because his kids were, like, fans of the source material. And then they actually tried with their performance and basically became the best part of a bad movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps that he has all the best lines in the movie. So.
100% he's got the best lines.
And some of them are actually from, like one of them is from Richard III. When he says, "I am not in the giving vein today." And there's one from Hero of a Thousand Faces.
Really?
Which that's the one that we always quote. You know the one.
Yeah.
Where are your friends now? Tell me about the loneliness of good, He-Man. Is it equal to the loneliness of evil?
Just okay. Why are you making Skeletor existential? I think my favorite line though is when he says,
"Everything comes to he who waits. And I have waited so very long for this moment."
and they give him a bunch of like villain monologues. It's just why is this super dramatic, like theatrical villain in this goofy fantasy movie? It's just so weird.
And his design is like completely changed from the cartoons as well. Because in the cartoons, he's just like got this purple hood. He's got like a skin tight blue thing on. He has like claws on his fingers. But in this, he's dressed like Sidious, but with like a bunch of weird like jewels and stuff all
and
over like the front.
In the cartoon, he has a skull for a head, and he doesn't have eyes. In this, he has eyes, which that's definitely a change. And then later in the movie, he gets this like gold armor when he basically becomes a god, and then he doesn't even look like Skeletor anymore.
So the helmet looks impressive, but it also looks kind of dumb on him, I'm gonna be honest.
It kind of made him look like the troll from Ernest Scared Stupid a bit. But it was kind of weird. Yeah, he does. Yeah, the design, like, another thing is, like, in the cartoon, Skeletor is, like, super buff. Like, he's got, like, huge muscles.
Yeah.
He's got a skeleton head, but, like, the rest of his body looks super muscular. It's so weird. But yeah, he's easily the best part of this movie. Like, not even, like... Because, like, every time Skeletor is on screen, you just wish that he was there more often because he's that good.
And, like, everything surrounding him is great, too. Like, his throne that has, like, the two pillars with, like, runes carved in the side. His other throne that's, like, a flying car that he drives around on Earth for, like, 5 minutes.
I actually am impressed with, like, the set design in this, because, like, canon movies...
Everything that's from Eternia looks fantastic.
Because, like, canon movies were usually, like, really cheap and, like... you know, and stuff, but like here it looks like they actually spent a lot of money on like the sets and like the like matte paintings and stuff. Like Castle Grayskull looks really cool. Like,
yeah, no, that is a dope matte paint. I think that was a matte painting, right?
Yeah,
like
it was.
The intro.
I'm pretty sure. Like the beginning of this movie, it looks like a pretty good adaptation of the cartoon, you know? It looks like what you would expect a live-action version of Eternia to look like. And it's easily the best part of the movie. You wish the rest of the movie was more like the first 20 minutes. The costumes are pretty good, too. Like, they look like what you would expect live-action versions of these characters to look like, you know, especially, you know, Skeletor's costume is pretty good, He-Man. Evelyn's costume is pretty good, like, that's basically...
yeah.
You know...
Man-at-Arms looks a little weird, but, I mean, it's accurate to the cartoon.
Yeah, he looks like Man-at-Arms. They cast people that looked like the characters too. I mean, Dolph Lundgren, he looks like what a live-action He-Man would look like.
Yeah.
His acting's not the best, but I mean, the look, he looks like He-Man.
Yeah, he looks great. The voice throws me off a little bit because it sounds like he's slurring his words sometimes, but
yeah, I don't think he knew much English at that point, so that might be why. But I mean, I can't really think of too many people besides Dolph Lundgren to cast as He-Man. Like, what, Fabio, maybe? I don't know.
Could have just gone with Schwarzenegger again. Just do basically another Conan movie.
Yeah. Or, what's his name? Nuclear Man. Just get the guy from Superman 4. I mean, he looked like He-Man in that movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
And the other cast member, I said there were two cast members that I thought were pretty good in this. The other was Meg Foster as Evil Lynn. I thought she was a good casting choice for that character,
Yeah.
She looks intimidating, and like Frank Langella, she's treating the material very seriously, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Just because of the type of movie this is, Again, it made me wish that, Skeletor and Evil Lynn were in this movie more.
The music's not bad. It definitely has a Star Wars-y feel to it.
I was gonna say, the music sounds like Superman at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, the opening credits, it sounds almost exactly like the theme from Superman. It was throwing me off, but it's not John Williams. It's actually Bill Conti that did the music, and he did the music for the Rocky movies.
Oh, that's interesting.
Imagine Stallone as He-Man.
That would be weird.
By the power of Grayskull,
By the power of Grayskull.
Yo, Adrian, I gotta go fight Skeletor. Skeletor says, who are you? Your worst nightmare. So the Gweldor doesn't look bad,
No, he doesn't. It's obvious that there's a lot of work that went into a lot of the Eternia stuff.
I think it was either
And a lot of the
prosthetics or makeup that they had on Gweldor.
And then the four mercenaries that Skeletor hires, some of them look pretty good. Blade looks kind of stupid, but
I think one of them was supposed to be Beast Man, but I was like, I barely read. He doesn't really look like Beast Man does in the cartoon, which is weird.
And the Blade just looks like a really bad version of Kano from Mortal Kombat.
Kind of. And he looks nothing like Blade from the Blade movies.
Yeah.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill. I just always wanted an excuse to use that line. And Gweldor, he kind of looks like a character from Willow, which... I mean, that's why Billy Barty is in both of those movies. The special effects aren't bad for a canon movie.
Yeah, no, it
looks better than Supergirl, for example. And that I think that movie was more expensive than this. Let me see. Wait a second. This was 22 million. Supergirl cost 35 million. Are you kidding me? That was probably because of the cast. I mean, just compare this to Superman 4, which came out the same year, and was only slightly cheaper. They just do not look like they were made by the same studio. It's so weird.
And then Skeletor's soldiers, they very clearly took inspiration from stormtroopers in Star Wars, but the costumes still look pretty decent.
What they looked like is they looked like stormtroopers, but if their armor was black and they had like a version of Darth Vader's helmets.
Hmm.
So they kind of look like space balls. A little bit. I forgot that the song Living in a Box by the band Living in a Box was in this movie. That was kind of weird to hear. Oh, and speaking of songs you didn't expect to hear in this movie, at one point He-Man starts singing What's Going On? I knew I had to fit that in somewhere. Apparently some of the miniatures were reused from Blade Runner and Ghostbusters.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me.
Like, Evil Lynn looks kind of like Gozer from Ghostbusters.
Oh, yeah, you're right, yeah.
Choose the form of the Destructor. Right, when someone asks if you're a god, you say yes. One trivia fact I wrote down, there was a kid who won a contest to be in the movie.
Yeah.
So he got the role of Pig Boy. He's like that little pig boy that's holding Skeletor's staff at one point.
Oh, that character.
Doesn't do anything at all.
Nope.
It's just kind of funny. Like,
I bet he loved being on set, though.
well, yeah, obviously. I mean, it's a better deal than whoever won that contest to be in The Mask 2. And then that never happened. Although that was a good thing, because that movie ended up being Son of the Mask, which is one of the worst fucking things I've ever seen. I like the sword fighting in this, you know?
Yeah, a lot of the fights were pretty good. I also really liked the end fight between He-Man and Skeletor.
I feel like it went kind of fast, though. Like,
it did. There could have been more of it, but it was well done. I also like He-Man and Skeletor's lines to each other during that fight at the end there.
I'm trying to remember.
Because Skeletor goes, you will never stand between me and my destiny. He-Man just responds with, but I will.
But I will. Oh, nice.
Did you see that there was a post-credits scene in the movie?
Yes, I was going to mention that. I wasn't sure if you knew about this or not.
Yeah, I watched it, and it was a little dumb.
There's an after-credits scene, so, okay, Skeletor basically fell into, like, this pit or something, and, like...
The pit looked kind of cool, like the painting they used for it.
You assume he's dead. But then the after-credits scene, you see Skeletor get out of a tub with, like, pink water, and he says, I'll be back! And then that's the end of the movie. It's like, okay. And then obviously this didn't get a sequel, although from what I've heard, Frank Langella would be very willing to come back for another round of Skeletor.
I would love to see another Frank Langella Skeletor performance.
Because I wasn't joking earlier when I said this is actually one of his favorite roles. Like, he really enjoyed making this movie. Like, he took the part very seriously, and, like, you know... I guess whenever you play the villain in a movie, it's bound to be fun, right, you know?
Yeah, especially if you're playing Skeletor.
It would be funny, though, if he actually played Skeletor, like the one from the cartoon, you know?
Oh, yeah.
I could write a book about what you don't know.
What you don't know. I would love to see this Skeletor insult people more.
Yeah, he'd have more, like, metaphysical insults, I would imagine. There's a Jimi Hendrix song in this. Purple Haze. They play Purple Haze at one point.
Oh, is that when they're in the music store?
When they're in the guitar store, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it funny.
You should be
that,
yeah.
I find it funny that cooking chicken in a microwave jams Evil Lynn's signal. And then she instructs them to blow up the thing that's jamming the signal so the microwave explodes.
There's one part when they finally catch up to Kevin, and they put like this collar around him that I think makes him tell the truth or whatever. But when I saw it, the first thing I thought of was in Saw 3, like the shotgun collar that they forced the one woman to wear.
I haven't seen Saw 3, so
let me find a picture.
And the only Saw movie you've seen is Spiral.
Yes.
One thing I found interesting, they seem to imply that the people of Eternia are vegetarians.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting because they're eating a bucket of fried chicken at one point, and Tila is like, I wonder what are these strange white sticks they put in the food. And like when she finds out that it used to be an animal, she like throws the chicken away.
Yeah, she finds it barbaric that, you know, people of Earth eat animals. Like, I don't know if that's in the show or not.
I don't think so.
I don't recall them ever eating much of anything in the show, but yeah, that was, okay.
They also don't know what a cow is.
A cow, yeah. I mean, are there any cows on Eternia? I don't think there are.
I don't know.
I'm trying to remember. I've only watched like 20 episodes at this point. They're on YouTube. They're pretty easy to find now, apparently. I did find some of the stuff with that cop kind of funny.
Yeah. What was the cop's name?
I just wrote that he's
Hugh.
played by Strickland from Back to the Future. I don't know his name. But at one point he says, like...
Hugh Lubick.
At one point he says, he like, asks if they're part of, like, a cult or something. Because, I mean, to be fair, He-Man and his friends do look kind of strange to, you know, other people. I also thought the stunts and explosions were pretty good. You know, that was one of the things Canon was always good with, was, like, action scenes and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Their better movies tend to be just lower budgeted action movies. Where they could just focus on
and then with that,
and pyrotechnics.
The detective, yeah.
Sorry, you can keep going.
With hold on. The detective actually has some pretty good lines throughout as well. Like he's got the one where he sees He-Man for the first time and he goes, "Well, what do you know? The mountain comes to Muhammad."
Okay. There's like a BDSM torture scene at one point. They're like whipping He-Man with like this. It's like this laser whip.
Like a laser whip.
There's something that was interesting. Anybody that's into that, well, it's in this movie. Then Skeletor's armor towards the end of the movie, he like gains the power of Grayskull, and he looks like a Power Rangers villain or something. It's so weird. Oh, we do have they don't say by the power of Grayskull in this movie, but He-Man does say, "I have the power."
I have the power!
When he gets the sword back at the end of the movie. There's a weird twist at the end of this movie. Okay, so... You know what?
I think we need to start getting into the cons.
I'm gonna put that into the cons, actually. I'm gonna move that. Let's start getting into the cons. Okay.
Okay, so the biggest problem this movie has is its main premise. Its central plot just kind of sucks.
They basically made the mistake of taking these characters from this really interesting fantasy world and putting them on Earth to save money.
Yeah.
I mean,
And they don't even really...
it's especially disappointing because Eternia looks really cool in this movie, too.
Yeah, like, if they would have just made this like a sword and sorcery movie set in Eternia, that would have been great.
Like, imagine, like, a Conan the Barbarian type movie, but it's He-Man instead of, Instead of battling on Eternia, we have Courteney Cox being sad that her parents died, and Gwildor eating fried chicken, like...
and drinking gravy.
At some points, it felt like a Brat Pack movie. Like 16 Candles or something like that. Because so much of this movie, it deals with these high schoolers, their relationships.
Yeah.
It's just boring. I'm
like,
sorry.
The main character, Courteney Cox, I guess the main Earth character, her parents died in a plane crash and she blames herself, so she's going to move away to New Jersey. Oh, but she's got to break up with her boyfriend. It's like, it's not interesting at all.
Not really, no.
I do not care about anybody from Earth in this movie.
I will say, though, Courteney Cox's character becomes a lot more interesting if you just imagine that this is what Monica's life was like before Friends. So, yeah. That's what the theme song is, how does it go again? See, no one told you life was gonna be this way, and apparently you meet He-Man.
Yeah.
In the midst of all. Okay. There was actually an episode of the show I was watching this morning, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Where people from Earth end up on Eternia. Honestly, that would have been a lot more interesting. As a movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been much better if they somehow yanked him over there. No, it would have been better if Earth wasn't even involved. Just give me only Eternia.
Yeah. But it was the 80s. I guess the fish out of water type comedies were pretty popular, because you had Crocodile Dundee, you had Coming to America, Splash,
A lot of these characters were pretty stupid.
The Earth
Kevin.
characters were really boring, I thought, so...
Yeah. Like, Kevin, he finds this thing, like, the MacGuffin of the movie is the cosmic key. It's like this tube with tuning forks on it that lets you open a portal and go anywhere you want. So this, like, random
You can go
anywhere.
Oh my god.
It.
Wait, you can go anywhere you want. Why on Earth would you go to Earth?
And we get landed on Earth. Exactly. So this random jock finds it. He's like, oh, this is one of those Japanese synthesizers.
It does kind of sound
like... what are you talking about?
To be fair, it does kind of...
It sounds like one, but he doesn't know it yet. He just picks it up and assumes it's a Japanese synthesizer.
What do Japanese synthesizers look like? Wait a second. I'm gonna look one up.
I'm pretty sure they look like keyboards.
Yeah, no, they don't look anything like that. What the hell? Maybe he was watching like a Japanese sci-fi movie or something. I don't know. That's so weird. It's more like something that the aliens from Close Encounters of the Third Kind would be using. Not like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do. But yeah, the movie is so boring when they go to Earth, because that's when you also see the budget limitations, because then it just starts to look really cheap and uninteresting.
Yeah.
Because the stuff on Eternia, like, I don't know if I'd say like the camera work is amazing, but like the set design's pretty cool and stuff. But like then you just have them in like some random town in Nowheresville, USA, and it looks boring. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
I don't know where they shot this, but not in a place that's all that interesting. Like, there's literally a fight scene in a high school auditorium. And there's like nobody there. There's nobody there.
Like, all the Earth scenes, like, there's a couple that take place during the day, but most of what happens on Earth is, like, shot at night. So there's, like, no one around to see this except for the main characters.
Yeah, and, like, wouldn't that be interesting having, like, Skeletor interact with, like... Well, that's another thing. Skeletor doesn't really interact with any of the Earth characters.
No.
Evil Lyn does.
He interacts with He-Man mostly, and his minions.
Oh my fucking...
And, I guess, the Sorceress.
Oh, boy. Oh, yeah, the Sorceress. She's barely in this movie.
Yeah.
Again, it's another example of Canon's ambitions exceeding their budget.
Yeah.
Like, that's why Canon went bankrupt. Like, Canon was better when they do these low-budget action movies, and they could just make them really quickly, and maybe they'd get some, dollars off of it. But then when they tried to expand and make bigger budget spectacles, like, it almost always fell flat, because Life Force was a bomb, this was a bomb, Superman 4 was a bomb.
Yeah, it was...
Although, to be fair, I do enjoy Life Force. Like, it's an enjoyable movie, but I don't know why they thought that would have mass appeal to people. Is it just me, or did this movie sort of feel like Supergirl? A little bit?
A little bit, yeah.
Because, they're from another planet. Then they end up on Earth. There's an important device that ends up crashing on Earth, and someone finds it, There's a witch, there's a few parallels. Oh, that's an important question to ask. Is this better or worse than Supergirl? It's better. It's better.
It's better. It's much better.
The characters
and then I mentioned this
were just kind of one-dimensional, especially the protagonists. They just not interesting at all. Like I mentioned earlier, whenever Skeletor wasn't on screen, the movie really just, became so much less interesting.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned it before, but the lack of a lot of He-Man characters is really disappointing. Especially the mercenaries that Skeletor picks. It's like, Beastman is well known.
But he doesn't look like Beastman in this, so I mean...
No, and then Blade, Saurod, and Karg, I barely remember what they look like. The only reason I remember Blade is because he looked like Kano.
Karg, what a dumb name. Karg. Yeah, like, where's the Snake Man? Like, that's one of the things that...
Yeah.
Like, we don't ever see Snake Mountain in this movie. Yeah, you got Beastman, Blade, Saurod, Karg, and there's plenty of He-Man characters to choose from. I mean, at the very least, they had Skeletor. I mean, there's that at least.
But there's no Battle Cat, there's no She-Ra.
Battle Cat would have been so cool to see in this movie.
Know.
Although, granted, that would be hard to do. I don't know.
Yeah.
They'd probably have to have, like, an animatronic or something. Like, it'd be like that thing from Neverending Story or something. I can't remember the name. The white dog-like thing that he rides on.
Yeah.
Falcor? Was it Falcor? Wait. Yes, Falcor.
Yes.
Falcor. Okay. Yeah, like just... and Orko's not in it. I mean, there's people that like Orko. I'm not one of them, but like a lot of people were disappointed that Orko wasn't in this.
And they replaced Orko with
no
Gwildor,
Roboto.
who just
Robato's not
sucks.
in this.
Yeah, no Roboto.
There's again so many characters you could have. I mean, they do have Skeletor. They do have Beastman. Kind of. They have Evil Lyn. They don't have Triclops though. I'm just looking at a list right now. No Triclops, no Merman, no Trapjaw. I mean, again, there's plenty to choose from.
Yeah.
Besides just what were their names? Like Blade and Karg.
Karg.
What kind of name is that?
Yeah, no Buzz-Off, no Trapjaw, no Stinkor, Scareglow, Spikor.
Yeah. It's just they took like some cool ideas and then just took a really boring route to do this.
Yeah.
Like seriously. I also thought the movie felt longer than it was.
Yeah. I mean, even when I saw the runtime, it's an hour and 40 minutes. I thought that an hour 40 seems a bit long from what I remembered. And even then it felt even longer.
Like, yeah, it's only like hour 45. It felt like a 2-hour movie. Because it feels like not much happens in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, there's occasionally an action scene, but like the plot is like just... There's barely a plot here, and what little there is just kind of boring. Like, go to Earth, find the dimension device, and keep it away from Skeletor. I mean, okay. Oh, and meanwhile, you got Monica and her boyfriend, and they have relationship problems. It's just, what? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember this being a Friends episode. But speaking of that, the ending of this. Okay, so her parents, we established they died in a plane crash, right?
The ending. Oh god.
They died in a
It's
plane
so
crash,
bad.
I think, right?
Yeah.
But then at the end of the movie, Courteney Cox, like, she wakes up and somehow her parents were brought back to life.
What?
And I was in disbelief. I was like, are they
it's
really
weird?
Are they really going this direction?
It's weird because it was like her only character trait was my parents are dead and I'm sad. And they take that away from her. They take away her only character trait at the end of the movie.
I don't understand how they came. Did He-Man did like the power of Grayskull like bring him back to life or something? What?
I think, at least according to the the IMDb plot summary, they just sent her into the past before her parents died.
Oh my what?
So she could presumably stop it?
Oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah, see, no one told you life was gonna be this way. Oh my god. So wait, does she still meet Chandler in this timeline?
Maybe this is the timeline where she meets Chandler.
Maybe,
her parents
yeah.
Didn't die.
Maybe, yeah. Oh yeah, we never see damn it. Ross. We never see Ross at all. Because he's her brother, so I don't know. Yeah, I could not believe that they actually did that as a plot twist. Like,
It's so dumb.
But then again, like, I mean, nobody really has a character arc in this, so I guess that's the closest you have to one.
But it's a reverse character arc. It's taking away her initiative and her backstory.
I guess, yeah. Oh, hey, Peter Parker, we brought your parents back to life. And Uncle Ben, we brought Uncle Ben back to life, too. You don't have to be Spider-Man anymore. I feel like okay, because this happened a lot with canon movies, but I feel like they cut a bunch of scenes that would have added.
They had to.
That would have added character development, because there's none. There's like no character development.
Yeah.
Although, granted, I don't know how much character development you could get out of He-Man. Like, I guess this is what happens when you take a 20-minute cartoon and stretch it out to feature length.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add, or? Because I really am out of.
Have I said before how much I hate Gwildor as a character?
No, you didn't.
Because all he's is annoying and just yells the whole time.
You didn't mention Gwildor yet. I don't think I think I mentioned him a few times, but yeah, you weren't a fan of Gwildor, basically.
No. Terrible character. I hate him.
He was kind of annoying, yeah. Like, he felt out of place, too.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, we need comic relief, I guess.
Yeah, because that's really all he is just a comic relief, funny animal character.
He's basically just a replacement for Orko, and that's what
Yeah.
Orko was in the show. It's just like, really, he was just kind of the annoying comic relief, and he had magical powers, Like, I didn't think, like, the makeup was bad, but yeah, like, that character really didn't do a whole lot to...
And also, when the portal first opens up and throws them into Earth, that effect is just terrible. It looks like it's a still picture of each one that they just drug out of the portal. It's awful.
Yeah. Again, though, better special effects than Superman 4.
Yeah.
It looks like a more finished movie than Superman 4.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
I guess I wasn't as annoyed by Gwildor as you were. He was just he was such a non-factor in this movie for me. Like, he didn't hinder it or save it for me, so I'm like, okay. There were maybe like 1 or 2 moments where I chuckled at him, but that was about it. So. Like, when there was like one part where he says like he's like wearing like sunglasses and stuff, and he says no one will recognize us, and then what was his name, the boyfriend character, what was his name again?
Oh yeah,
Kevin says, what the hell is that? And Gwildor says, see? I thought that was kind of funny, but yeah, aside from that, Gwildor was just kind of lame. Orko was already lame, and then you replace him with a character that's even lamer somehow.
Yeah.
Is that it? Do you have anything?
I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay, because I'm out of notes on my. Well, okay. Do you want to get into overall thoughts now?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, I admire the ambition here. You can't deny that. There was some ambition here, right?
Yeah.
But man, there's a lot of wasted potential here. I mean, then again, He-Man on Earth that's just a kind of a boring idea.
Bad concept, yeah.
It was interesting seeing them try to adapt a cartoon from the 80s, like, in live action, because I can't think of too many examples that were live action back then. Because the G.I. Joe and Transformers movies, those were both animated.
Yeah. I guess TMNT had the live action movies.
That was in the 90s, but yeah.
Oh, that was the 90s?
I was thinking of like the 80s, but yeah, that was an 80s cartoon, so I guess that counts. Which that was definitely a better adaptation of the the source material than this. But yeah, it was just I just found it kind of dull. The action scenes are fun to watch. Like again, a lot of the action scenes kind of just felt like Star Wars. I don't know if I
Yeah.
mentioned that, but this movie really wanted to be Star Wars. Even down to like the bad guys, they just look like stormtroopers wearing Darth Vader helmets. And they even shoot lasers. I think they even got like one of the guys that did the effects from the Star Wars movies to do some of the effects for this. So, you know.
Huh.
And I mean, to be fair, the visuals, you know, the sets and stuff, that was some of the better stuff in this movie. I wish there was more of that.
Yeah.
Skeletor and Evil Lynn, they were definitely the highlights here as far as the cast went. If there's any Friends fans out there, you could treat this as a Monica prequel. Now, if only Chandler or Joey were in this. Or if you want to see Dolph Lundgren's first starring role, then here you go.
And here it is. It's free on Tubi right now.
It is, yeah. Do you have anything else to add?
I think mostly just sort of what I said at the beginning. It's got a lot of great ideas there. I love what they did with Skeletor. The beginning and end when it takes place on Eternia is interesting, and I really do wish we could have seen more of that world. But the whole film is just weighed down by its central plot of the He-Man characters on Earth. And it focuses way too much on just some random high school couples relationship issues.
Yeah, that's what everybody wanted.
Just
because, you know,
yeah.
You know, young boys that watch the He-Man cartoon, of course, what do they want to see? Oh yeah, like high school relationship troubles.
And maybe if they had adapted,
they did not know their demographic, did they?
Yeah. And maybe if they altered their storyline a little bit, like instead of He-Man and the crew interact with random high school couple, maybe instead if it's He-Man and the crew interact with the United States military, like maybe that would have been a bit more interesting and a bit more in the spirit of things.
The United States military, oh god. Oh, so just make it like Superman 2 then?
Exactly.
And have Skeletor meet the President of the United States.
Exactly. Just remake Superman 2, but with He-Man and Skeletor.
Kneel before me, you royal boob. Oh, man. Superman 2. You know, there's a lot of properties being remade. Maybe we do need a live-action He-Man remake.
So that is actually something I wanted to mention real quick before we stopped.
Oh, are they doing one?
All of the different attempts to make either a sequel or a reboot of live-action He-Man. John Woo was supposed to do one in 2004. That never got greenlit. Then Sony in 2009 tried to do one. Another one in 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018.
Oh boy.
And the newest one is from November 13th, 2023, where Amazon is apparently in talks with Travis Knight to direct a new live-action He-Man.
Do they mention who they were considering?
No, it's very early on.
Okay. But like for any of those other ones, did they mention?
I don't know. Let me.
So Travis
I don't know
Knight
if they
did Kubo and the Two Strings and Bumblebee. Okay. And he's doing some movie called Wildwood. I don't know what this is. Charlie Day is in it, apparently. Okay. But yeah, so, and that was, you mentioned sequels to this. One of our future podcasts is going to be about
Yeah.
kind of a sequel to Masters of the Universe. Yeah, but we'll talk about that later, though. Oh shit, we
Next
need like
time.
we need like a little message
Yeah.
at the end, like He-Man does. like what's the moral of the story here?
The moral of the story is, if you're going to make an adaptation of a property where the characters in one world end up on Earth, do something interesting with it and don't just set it in a high school.
Yeah. They barely stay at the high school either. Like,
wait, I'm sorry. We actually did learn a very important lesson that Skeletor taught us.
Oh.
He taught us that the loneliness of good and how it compares to the loneliness of evil.
Is it lonelier to be good or lonelier to be evil? That is something to ponder.
So I think that's about it. But before we roll the Andy Griffith, join us back next time for a very special 100th episode.
Hey kids listening to this, eat your school, don't do vegetables, stay in drugs. Anybody that's not a kid that's listening to this, don't molest kids like the director of this movie did.
Yeah, that's the lesson.
Roll the clip.
Andrew Griffith.
Good night, you stupid idiot. Good night, you miserable slob.